There is a version of you that no insult can reach, no rejection can shrink, and no crowd can control. Most people never meet that version of themselves because they are too busy managing what others think. But somewhere between betrayal and silence, a small number of people discover something the rest never do. The moment you stop needing the world's approval, the world loses its grip on you. That is not coldness. That is not arrogance. That is the most dangerous thing a person can become: untouchable. This is the story of how that happens and why almost no one gets there. Rachel had been a nurse for 6 years before one comment nearly broke her. A patient's family member called her incompetent in front of the entire unit, loudly, publicly, unfairly. She had done nothing wrong. But she carried those words home, replayed them through dinner, through her shower, through 3 hours of staring at the ceiling. The man who said them was asleep by 9. Rachel was still awake at 1, fighting a battle he didn't even know he'd started. This is the cage almost nobody sees. It has no bars. It has no lock. It is built entirely out of other people's words, and we build it ourselves, one replay at a time. Epictetus, a man who spent his early life in chains as a slave, understood something most free people never grasp. It is never the event that hurts you. It is the meaning you assign to it afterward. The comment lasted 4 seconds. Rachel's suffering lasted 5 hours. The math never made sense until you realized the second half of that suffering was self-inflicted. Look at how this plays out today. A single notification ruins a morning. An unanswered text becomes proof of rejection. A stranger's opinion, from someone we will never meet again, decides whether we feel like a success or a failure for the rest of the day. We are, without noticing, handing our peace to people who never asked for it and wouldn't know what to do with it if they did. So, here is the only question worth asking the next time someone tries to provoke you. Are they controlling this moment, or am I? Because the instant you can answer that honestly, you take the first step out of a cage you didn't know you were standing in. David kept a scoreboard he never wrote down, a good meeting with his boss, and he felt like a competent adult. A cold email left unanswered, and he felt like a fraud. He didn't choose to track his worth this way. Nobody does. It happens quietly, one reaction at a time, until you wake up one day and realize your entire sense of self is being calculated by people who barely think about you at all. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire that stretched across 3 continents, and still he wrote to himself, privately, that praise is nothing more than noise, a sound that vanishes the second it's spoken. He knew something David didn't. The crowd that applauds you today will forget your name by next season. Fame is a lease, never a deed. Nobody actually owns it. This isn't a call to stop caring about people. It's a warning about where you let your identity live. A compliment can lift you for an afternoon. A criticism can wreck your week. But if your sense of worth rises and falls with every stranger's mood, you haven't built a life. You've built a mirror that changes its story every time someone new walks by. Ask yourself something uncomfortable. If every like, every compliment, every round of applause disappeared tomorrow, would you still choose to become the person you're working to become? If the answer is yes, you're building character. If the answer is no, you were never chasing growth, you were chasing witnesses. The day you stop needing permission to feel worthy is the day nobody can take that worth away from you again. Tom built a company, sold it, lost the money in a bad investment, and watched most of his friends disappear along with it. For a while, he thought his life was over. Then, slowly, he noticed something strange. Waking up with almost nothing left him lighter than he'd felt in a decade. He no longer had anything left to protect, and that meant, for the first time, nobody had anything to threaten him with. Seneca, one of the wealthiest men in Rome, warned that the poorest person isn't the one with the least, It's the one who can never say, enough. Desire doesn't have a finish line. Give it one win, and it immediately demands another. That's why some people own everything and sleep with a restless mind, while others own almost nothing and rest easy. Every advertisement, every algorithm, every glossy feed whispers the same lie. You are incomplete, and this next purchase, this next achievement, will finally fix that. But the finish line keeps moving. The house gets bigger, the title gets longer. The emptiness keeps quiet pace right behind it. The old philosophers used to practice living with less on purpose, not because they were poor, but to prove something to themselves. If the world took everything away tomorrow, it still couldn't take them. That is a freedom most people never test, because they've quietly confused what they own with who they are. Ask yourself tonight, what do you own that secretly owns you? Because the day your peace becomes worth more than your possessions is the day nothing left to lose becomes nothing left to fear. Marcus was a firefighter for 14 years before his station was shut down in a budget cut. He had built his entire identity around the uniform, the crew, the purpose. For months, he tried to force his old life back into place, applying to stations 2 hours away, refusing to imagine any other version of himself. It wasn't until he stopped fighting the change and asked a harder question, who can I become because of this, that a new path opened at all. A river never argues with a rock. It doesn't demand the rock move. It simply finds another way around it. And somehow, after 1,000 years, the river is still moving and the rock is worn down to sand. That is not weakness. That is a kind of strength most people never learn, because they've been taught that bending means losing. Epictetus knew this better than almost anyone in history, because his body had been enslaved and he had no say over most of his circumstances. What he discovered instead was that acceptance of what cannot be changed is not surrender, it's where real strength begins. He didn't waste his energy asking why his life had gone a certain way. He asked what kind of man he could build from what remained. So when your plans collapse without warning, resist the urge to call it a tragedy too quickly. Sometimes life closes a door because it already sees a destination you can't see yet. The people who survive the hardest seasons aren't always the strongest. They're the ones who know exactly when to stand firm and when to bend. Elena spent 11 months in treatment for an illness that took her hair, her energy, and most of the plans she'd made for that year. People kept telling her to stay positive, and for a while she resented the phrase, as if positivity alone could shrink a tumor. What actually got her through wasn't blind optimism. It was something closer to what the old Stoics practiced, facing the truth of her situation exactly as it was, without flinching, while refusing to let that truth decide who she would become on the other side of it. There's a question that quietly separates people who are shaped by hardship from people who are simply worn down by it. When pain arrives, what do you let it turn you into? Most people let old wounds calcify into bitterness, replaying betrayals like trophies of unfair treatment. But the Stoics believed something almost inconvenient, that pain isn't proof life owes you an apology. It's raw material. Steel doesn't get stronger in comfort. It gets stronger passing through fire. Diamonds don't form without pressure. Nature has never once built something durable out of ease, so it's strange that we expect our own character to grow without ever being tested. The next time life breaks something you were counting on, resist the question, why is this happening to me? And ask the far more useful one, what is this preparing me for? That single shift turns suffering into training. Elena finished treatment 18 months ago. She says the illness didn't make her fearless, it just made most things that used to scare her look small by comparison. James hadn't sat in a quiet room without his phone in almost 4 years, not once. Every gap in his day, waiting for coffee, riding an elevator, lying in bed before sleep, was automatically filled with someone else's voice. A headline, a stranger's opinion, a notification demanding a reaction he didn't actually have yet. He didn't notice how loud his life had become until a weekend trip left him without signal for 2 days, and the silence felt less like peace and more like withdrawal. That reaction is not unusual. It's the quiet cost of a mind that never gets to hear itself think. Marcus Aurelius, even while ruling an empire, deliberately withdrew from the noise of the court, not because he disliked people, but because he understood something most of us have forgotten. A mind that never experiences stillness slowly loses the ability to form its own thoughts. It starts borrowing opinions instead of building them. It repeats the loudest voice in the room instead of questioning it. Think about the last time you were completely alone, with no screen, no sound, nothing to hide behind. For a lot of people, that moment simply never comes anymore. Silence feels uncomfortable precisely because there's nowhere left to hide from yourself in it. The old Stoics treated stillness the way we treat sleep, not optional, not a luxury, but maintenance the mind requires to function. The strongest decisions are rarely made in noise. They're made in the quiet gap after the noise finally stops, where judgment gets a chance to speak before emotion does. James still checks his phone constantly, but now, once a day, for 10 minutes, he doesn't. He says it's the only part of his day that actually feels like his. Every person alive is carrying a quiet deadline they never agreed to. No amount of money, status, or charm has ever managed to negotiate an extension. It has never once arrived late. And yet most of us live as if we've signed a secret contract with tomorrow, delaying the honest conversation, postponing the risk, waiting for a version of ourselves that feels ready enough to finally begin. The old Stoics practiced something they called memento mori, remembering that you will die not out of morbidity, but because they discovered something almost strange. The person who keeps death close loses very little fear of life. Rejection stops carrying weight. Other people's judgment starts to look small. The argument you were about to have over something trivial suddenly seems like a poor use of the only time you actually own. This is where every idea in this video finally meets. The nurse who stopped letting strangers dictate her peace. The manager who stopped needing applause to feel worthy. The man who found freedom the moment he had nothing left to protect. The firefighter who bent instead of breaking. The woman who turned her illness into raw material instead of an excuse. The engineer who found his own voice again in 10 minutes of silence. Every one of them arrived at the same quiet, dangerous place. A life no longer available for rent by other people's opinions. That's what caring less actually means. Not coldness, not indifference to the people you love. It means your peace is no longer for sale, your identity is no longer on loan, and your days are no longer being spent auditioning for people who were never going to remember the performance anyway. So, if tonight were the final page of your story, would you be proud of how you spent today? If the answer is no, that's not a reason to panic. It's an invitation. Because the day you finally stop needing the world's permission to feel whole is the exact day the world loses its last piece of leverage over you, and that, quietly, is the most dangerous thing a person can become.